television. This week, the big new show that I finally gave a shot, which actually I've been trying to watch for a while, but the Comedy Central site was really being a hassle. The show is called Review. I remember seeing ads for it in the New York City subway when I was still living in Brooklyn, and the ads were totally unappealing because there was a guy sitting at a table looking really dopey, eating like a leg, and it just said something like, "Cannibalism, 3 stars." And I was like, that seems like a weird show. That is totally not my sense of humor at all. But all my favorite TV critics, you know, I haven't talked about podcasts on this in a while. I'm still listening to a ton of podcasts, everything from NPR to Talking TV with Ryan and Ryan. The Firewall and Iceberg podcast just ended. Tons of Nerdist interviews, tons of Happy, Sad, Confused, tons of great interviews. So I'm not even talking about those on here, but just wanted to say that enough of my TV critic friends have been talking about what a great show Review is, and so I was like, well, you know, it's only 2 seasons, I bet I could catch up pretty quick, and of course, wonderfully, all the episodes are, when you can get it to work, available on ComedyCentral.com. So in this week alone, I watched the entire first season, as well as the first couple episodes of the second season, and there's only 2 seasons, and so the premise of the show is pretty straightforward. It's a it's a critic who, instead of reviewing TV or books or movies or something like that, he reviews life. It's kind of like taking a distancing from the human experience, and you know, the way the show opens is like, life, it's all we have, but is it any good? And the idea that you'd even question, like, is life something good, is kind of a hilarious premise. And so he, you know, has viewers, I don't know if these questions are real or if it all comes from a writer's room, but people write in saying, you know, what's it like to have a quickie wedding? What's it like to run from the cops? What's it like to eat something weird, or, you know, in his case, 15 pancakes. And then in the same episode, someone says, what's it like to eat 30 pancakes? And so he just, in the first season, he does whatever he's asked without question. In the second season, he's given himself 2 vetoes, and he hasn't used them yet. My hypothesis is he won't use them. But what's interesting about the show is it lends itself entirely to a procedural nature. Like, there could be 150 episodes of the show that literally, you know, I almost think of like the worst case scenario survival's guidebook. Like, you could just go through every kind of scenario and just have his character in his kind of derpy way responding to each of those scenarios. Instead, though, there is a cumulative effect to the reviews he's doing, and that's what makes it special. That's what makes it a really interesting character study, because this character then goes from kind of a two-dimensional, you know, weird guy who just wants to review all sorts of life experiences he's never had, to someone whose life is slowly being destroyed by the weight of the different things he's doing. Because he starts out like in a super happy marriage with a kid, and you know, the show is almost like a fun little side project for him, but because he's so committed to doing everything that's asked of him on the show, things go downhill, and watching him deal with that and watching his friends and family deal with that is amazing. And I'm really looking forward to watching the rest of the show. So if you haven't checked out Review with Andy Daly, I highly recommend it. It's 5 stars. I give it 5 stars with a confidence of 5. The other 2 TV shows I started watching this week, or returning to watch them, Homeland, which I have very little to say about. You know, the first season of that show was amazing. I just really just kind of gone downhill from there, but never quite to the level that like Dexter's gone downhill for me, where I still keep watching it. Though to be fair, I watched all of Dexter, but you know, I'll just say the season premiere was fine. I mean, you know, of course, Carrie was having like a normal life and she gets pulled back into things, but I'm not enthralled. It's definitely going to be kind of a background show for me, which is a shame, because again, I look at the potential of where that first season could have gone, and alternate reality somewhere. It's the best show on television, and this one not so much. The Affair, kind of a similar thing, I guess. You know, something about Showtime has these incredible breakout seasons of shows. I'm not gonna be too harsh on it right now because I'm only 2 episodes into it, or an episode and a half really. But the structure of the show, which I think was incredible for the first few episodes and then was kind of hit or miss for the rest of the season, you know, takes this idea that you're seeing the same story from 2 different perspectives. And so, you know, it's kind of the thing I love about Mr. Robot and Fight Club and that kind of thing, the unreliable narrator. Like, it kind of makes you have to be a little bit more of an active listener, and you have to pay attention more to what's going on and kind of decide for yourself what's true and what isn't, and what pieces of the puzzle are we missing. So that was really cool in the first few episodes, because it actually felt like it was a puzzle. Like, you needed to put things together, and you'd see certain things from the first perspective. It would be, you know, the whole show, by the way, if you don't know, it's about an affair, haha. And as it's coming together, you know, you're seeing little glimpses into the future. There's a criminal case, which I kind of understand why they did it, but it's not the best thing to have overarching the whole show. But yeah, so you're putting together what happened by watching. I guess I don't know if it's supposed to be the memories of each character or what they're saying, like what they would say out loud. Because in some cases, this is what really becomes a problem later on, the perspectives are so different where you're like, okay, both of these people must be mentally insane, because there's no way two people could have that experience and one of them thinks that everything was calm and nice and polite and the other person thinks everyone was yelling and frustrated and angry the whole time. Like, there's a missing subtlety at a certain point, and what I'm getting to is the episode and a half that I've seen with the second season so far, I think really suffer from this. Like, the dual perspectives they don't feel like they're adding anything right now. They feel like it's a weird excuse to tell the same story twice and then just be like, oh, look, there's a different costume in both of these. Oh, why didn't she mention in her perspective that this is happening? Or, you know, I don't know, I'm becoming kind of like Bing Bong or something. But yeah, I'm not digging it right now. I mean, as I mentioned in my intro, like, it's super cool that there's stuff happening in Cold Spring, and I think that's a great place for a writer's retreat, and it makes me want to visit Montauk more, so I can, because I'm so familiar with Brooklyn and so familiar with Cold Spring, and to be able to compare, like, the three triangulated spots would be a cool way for me to relate to the show. But, you know, there's a promise that this season we're going to start seeing more from Joshua Jackson's perspective, and forgive me, I can't remember the name of the actress who's playing McNulty's wife there, but they were both fantastic in the first season, and in many cases more empathetic and more interesting than the titular characters who are having the affair. And so, yeah, that hasn't happened yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing their perspective. What I'm seeing in the second episode of Joshua Jackson's character is super flat and super one-dimensional, and it's probably just because we're seeing it from Ruth's perspective. Ruth Wilson is the actress's name. I can't remember what the Allison's character's perspective, but it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, we're going to see it from his perspective, and he's being like super polite and nice, but we're seeing from her perspective right now, and yeah, it's just, yeah, that's all I can say right now. I will probably not talk about this on a week-to-week basis, or maybe I will, but I will most likely just kind of give you my thoughts somewhere around the halfway point of the season, then maybe the end point of the season, and I hope that the show starts to have a lighter touch and really thinks carefully about if they're going to tell the same story twice in each episode, how to make that really interesting and not just feel like a gimmick. Yeah, so The Affair is season 2 so far, 3 stars with a confidence of 2.